truck. By the time Kylie hit her senior year of high school, it felt like my parents were running a full-blown campaign to crown her the family's golden child of the century. Don't get me wrong, I'd always known they favored her, but this was next-level stuff. My parents were treating Kylie's college plans like some kind of life or death mission. They were taking her on campus tours months in advance, turning them into mini family vacations. Every time they came back, Kylie had a fresh haul of university merch, hoodies, water bottles, planners like she'd already won the lottery. Meanwhile, I was just trying to survive. My budget was so tight that I was constantly behind on something. Tuition payments, books, car maintenance, you name it. I couldn't afford to take as many classes as I wanted, so my graduation timeline started to stretch out longer and longer. At this rate, I'd be lucky to graduate before Kylie. One night, Mom came into the kitchen while I was trying to study. I was already on edge because I just realized I'd forgotten to turn in an online assignment again. Without even a "how's it going?" she dropped it. "We're thinking of getting Kylie a car for college." I stared at her, trying to process. "She's going to need something reliable," Mom said, as if it was the most logical thing in the world. "You know how hard it is to get around without a car." I almost laughed. "You wouldn't even help me with a bus pass when I started college. And now you're buying Kylie a car." Mom gave me that look. You know, the don't be dramatic look. "Ellie, you've always been more independent. Kylie needs more support to succeed." I didn't say anything. I just went back to my notes, pretending I wasn't boiling inside. But here's the thing. It wasn't just the car. That was just a cherry on top. My parents had made it clear they were going all in on Kylie's college experience. Tuition covered, rent paid, monthly allowance. Of course, the same parents who told me I needed to learn the value of money were basically handing Kylie a blank check. It was like watching someone live out the dream you never got to have. The favoritism didn't stop there. Mom started spending hours researching dorm decor with Kylie, buying her bedding sets and matching storage bins. Dad was suddenly a tech expert, helping her pick out the perfect laptop. They even sat down to make a college prep budget, which honestly just looked like a shopping list for a spoiled teenager. I'll never forget the night they were all in the living room, huddled around a coffee table with campus brochures and spreadsheets. Kylie was showing off some Pinterest board of dorm ideas, while Dad was writing things down like he was planning a corporate merger. "What's going on?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "We're helping Kylie decide between schools," Mom said, barely glancing up. "It's such a big decision. We want to make sure she's prepared." Prepared, right? When Kylie started getting acceptance letters, it was like my parents had won the lottery. She got into her top choice school, and they threw her a celebratory dinner complete with her favorite meal and a cake that said, "Congrats, Kylie," in pink frosting. I didn't even get a good job when I got into community college. During the dinner, Mom kept going on about how proud she was and how Kylie had worked so hard for this. At one point, she turned to me and said, "Ellie, you must be so proud of your sister. She's really going places." I wanted to scream. Work hard. Kylie barely knew what hard work was. She'd been coasting through life on talent and parental favoritism while I was out here drowning in student loans and caffeine. After that, I started avoiding family dinners altogether. It was easier to focus on my own life than to watch them build Kylie's pedestal higher and higher. The final straw came a couple of weeks before Kylie's moving day. I came home from work one night to find a shiny used SUV parked in the driveway. At first, I thought maybe one of their friends had stopped by, but then Kylie came running outside squealing. "They got me a car," she shouted, practically bouncing up and down. I just stood there staring at it. Later that night, I overheard Mom and Dad talking about Kylie's monthly allowance. Apparently, they were planning to give her enough to cover groceries, gas, and a little extra for fun. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because I couldn't afford anything else. I thought about saying something about calling them out for how unfair it all was, but what was the point? They just tell me the same thing they always did. Kylie needs more support or it's not about favoritism. So I kept my mouth shut. Kylie, of course, was completely oblivious. She'd pop into my room every now and then to show me pictures of her dorm setup or talk about how excited she was to start her college journey. One time, she actually said, "Ellie, you're so lucky you got to figure out independence early. I don't know if I could handle everything you do." Lucky. She thought I was lucky. I wanted to laugh in her face, but instead I just said, "Yeah, it's been great," and went back to my homework. The favoritism wasn't bearable anymore. It was so in your face that I started questioning whether my parents even saw me as their kid or just some tenant who happened to share their DNA. I didn't talk to anyone about how I was feeling for the longest time. What was the point? My friends were supportive, but they didn't really get it. And bringing it up at home was like shouting into the void. But one night, I found myself calling Grandpa Hank. Growing up, I spent hours in his bakery, learning how to measure flour properly, crack eggs without getting shells everywhere, and make the perfect frosting swirls on cupcakes. It was his way of showing me that hard work could also be something you love. He never judged me, never pressured me to be perfect. He just let me be me. I hadn't talked to Grandpa Hank in a while. He and Grandma had been living their best lives ever since he retired a few years ago. The man spent his whole life building up his bakery business from scratch. And when he finally decided to step away, he left it in the hands of one of his longtime managers so he and Grandma could travel the world. They'd always dreamed about doing it. And once he hung up his apron, they went for it. The downside was that Grandpa wasn't exactly tech savvy. He barely knew how to use his phone, let alone keep up with social media. So staying in touch wasn't easy. He'd send the occasional postcard or call once in a blue moon, but most of the time, I just heard about their adventures secondhand through my parents. They'd only been back for a little while when I called them that night. I guess they decided to slow down and spend more time at home. I hadn't reached out earlier because, honestly, I didn't want to dump my problems on him. He was retired, happy, and finally getting to enjoy his life. The last thing I wanted was to ruin that by unloading all my drama. But that night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. When he picked up the phone, I could feel my shoulders relax a little. "Hey, kiddo," he said, his voice warm and familiar. "What's going on?" I didn't hold back. I told him everything. How I was drowning in bills. How my parents were pouring all their time and money into Kylie's college plans while making me pay rent. I ranted about the car they bought her, the allowance they were planning to give her, and how I was left struggling just to keep up with school. Grandpa listened quietly, letting me get all out. I could hear him making little noises of acknowledgement every now and then, like he was piecing something together in his head. Then, out of nowhere, he interrupted me. "Ellie," he said slowly, "didn't your parents use the money I gave them for your education?" I blinked. "What money?" There was a long pause, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed. It wasn't angry. Not yet. But there was something sharp about it, like he was trying to stay calm. "When you were 16, your grandmother and I put aside $50,000 for your college fund. We gave it to your parents because they said they'd use it to pay for your tuition and expenses. Are you telling me they never mentioned it to you?" I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "They never said anything," I said, my voice shaky. "I've been paying for everything myself. All of it." Grandpa let out a heavy sigh, the kind that felt like it carried years of disappointment. "Ellie, that money was for you. We gave it to them because we wanted to make sure you had a solid start so you wouldn't have to struggle. If I'd known this is what they were doing." He trailed off, but I could hear the anger creeping into his tone. It took me a minute to process what he was saying. All this time,